Sports, Clicks, and Politics. With your hosts, Ben Hussong and me, Shawn Hannon. Welcome to episode 123 of Sports, Clicks, and Politics. There we are. Thank you for joining us. I am Shawn Hannon, and joined as always by the wonderful Ben Hussong.
I'm not charming anymore.
I was going to get carried away there, so
That's
I was
fair.
just going to give you one adjective today.
I'll take one adjective.
Wonderful is somewhere along. Charming falls into wonderful. So how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Excellent weekend for you. We'll get to the Bills in a second here. Anything new for this weekend that you'd like to tickle the audience with?
We did brunch yesterday.
Oh, yeah? Like in-house brunch or out to brunch?
In-house brunch with some neighbors. A couple people came over. It was a great day. I feel like everybody should do that once a month in the winter, especially if you live up here where you don't see anybody in the winter because it's cold and nobody does anything. But we had a bunch of people over. We started about 11:30 in the morning. We ended about 11 at night. It was a long day.
So it was more than a brunch.
It turned into more than a brunch.
A brunch and nap time, apparently. So.
It was brunch and dinner. We ended up ordering pizzas for dinner because there was still almost everybody was still there.
Always an easy out. Pizza, for sure.
It was great. No, it was a great day. I highly recommend it.
Moons over my hammy?
No moons over my hammy.
Oh.
I didn't do moons over my hammy. We had a lot of food. It was very good. I'm still trying to get rid of this cow, so I had like ground beef sausages, meatballs, ground beef mixed in with some other stuff.
When are you giving me my eggs?
I don't have eggs yet. What do you want me to do here?
You know the world is is waiting for you to deliver eggs to us.
I'm well aware of that fact, and I don't have any yet. Like, I got to buy them just like the rest of you.
That was bad timing on your part.
I don't know what you
could have
want from me.
maximized your egg profits right now by just being like $4 a dozen. You could have made a killing.
I can't even make the chickens lay eggs right now. All right? We have the chickens. They're in a heated coop. We're doing everything we could think of to get them to lay eggs, but they're not doing it yet. It'll come.
I think they're cold.
I'm sure they're cold. Yes.
It's a little cold in the studio today.
It's a little chilly in here.
I feel like David Letterman's studio.
Waking me up right now.
Yeah, that's what I think the plan is. But
I like it. I like you say that's maybe the plan. Like, this isn't your design. Like, this isn't.
I mean, I noticed it like a half hour ago. I was like, "Ooh, it's a little chilly in here today," but I don't know. Keep us on our toes, I guess.
I guess so.
On that note, please, all you folks out there listening at home or in the car or wherever you are, please help us promote the show. Like the video, share the video. Leave us a rate and review. Subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment. Tell us how we're doing. Good or bad. I mean, if you're bad, be nice. But we'll take it. All right. Let's...
Did you do anything fun this weekend?
What did I haven't worked in a while, so all days are weekends to me. No. Did nothing.
All right.
Can't think of anything. I literally can't think of a thing I did of note.
That's outstanding.
Must have been a lot of time on the couch. All right.
I did go to the batting cages Friday night with my
You went to the batting
sons.
cages?
I mean, I went in for one round, but the rest of it I went with my kids so they could practice. We
Is
met up
this
with some friends.
baseball, yeah?
Yeah.
And what kind of speed are we talking about?
I went in for the 50-mile-an-hour cage. I didn't dare do any more than that.
Are you a righty or a lefty?
I'm a lefty.
Oh, I like to bat left-handed.
Do you?
Yeah.
I do too because I don't know how to bat right-handed.
I mean, my whole life I batted right-handed, but then near the end of my softball career, I was getting bored, so I was like, I think I'm just going to be a lefty, and then I just started hitting bombs lefty.
I like it.
Yeah, it was great.
All
my friends made fun of me. They're like, what the hell were you doing for the last 10 years sucking as a right-hander when you could have been a lefty?
I'm odd because I golf right-handed but bat left-handed, and I can't do the opposite. Like, I can't really swing a baseball bat right-handed.
It
feels
seems
weird.
Counterintuitive.
It's odd.
I feel like after a while you would get it.
Yeah, I mean, I can hit right-handed better than most people could hit left-handed, but I can't, not with any sort of competence. But the best part about this was I left perfect practice. I called my wife and said, hey, honey, did you already eat dinner? Because if you guys already ate, I'm going to take the boys out. We're going to go out to dinner. And so she said, yes. By the way, I was just looking into it, and I think, according to the town laws, we can have 2 goats and a cow. And I went, huh? And long story short, I don't know if we're getting anything, but there's at least the chance that we've settled on a mini cow. I'll let you know when.
I'm just going to move on. I don't even have a comment for this farm. old Hussong's farm.
It's
You guys
so
need,
fun.
you need to get that under control. Let's talk a little football, Mr. Hussong.
Sounds
Did you watch any of the games? We still got one left tonight. We'll get to that. Dallas and Tampa Bay. Probably, I don't know if the marquee matchup, but the Brady versus the Americas team thing. They put that in prime time here. But how was your? What about Saturday? First two games. We had 2 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday. What was your any? I mean, obviously we can talk about the Bills when you need to, but anything of note with the Seahawks, Niners, or Chargers, Jacksonville? Obviously, we got a little bit of upset there, I think, in the Jacksonville game.
I mean, the Chargers and Jacksonville was just such an epic collapse on the part of the Chargers that was remarkable. I can't believe they lost that game. Although, even in the first half, as I was watching, and I'm watching Jacksonville just turn the ball over left and right, and I'm looking at the Chargers like, you're not building enough of a lead off of this. Like, they're not going to play this bad the entire game. You guys, you need to put them away.
I mean, it was 27-0.
I get it, but it should have been worse. 4 turnovers and a half of football, like that's the minimum acceptable. And then
Tough to win with that.
they just couldn't put them away in the second half. It was terrible. It was quite the collapse. The other one that was that night was the
Niners, Seahawks.
Seahawks. Yeah. That went about as everybody expected.
Yeah. I mean, at halftime, it was, I guess, Seahawks took a point. Yeah, but it never felt like they were threatening to win that game, even though they were winning. But I watched that game and a little bit of the Jacks. I actually turned off the Chargers game before.
Did you?
Yeah. So
I stayed up for that one. I watched the whole thing. I was good to go, and that was a great one. Obviously, the Bills game, I'm good with it. Like, I get it. Some people don't love how that went down.
Yeah, listen, two division. I mean, you can say the same thing about the Bengals Ravens game, right? These teams know each other. They played for forever. Even when you have coaching changes and personnel changes, like, nothing's lost with division teams. Like, they know everything's going on. So I always expect close games in the playoffs with these, regardless of point spread and ranking or whatever, seeding or whatever you want to talk about it. So I wasn't expecting a Bills blowout. I expected the Bills win, and they got it, so good for them, and they get to move on, and a win is a win is a win in the playoffs for sure.
I'm with you, and it was always, I get it's third string quarterback and everything else, and they only won.
He
by
looks okay though.
But listen to the guy.
I mean, he's not. So let me give my Skylar Thompson take here. Like, when I watched him the first time play, I was like, okay, he has a bit of pocket presence. Like, he moves around. He's okay. He's young, so he's going to make stupid things and whatever, and he's not going to be perfect. But it never seemed like the moment was too big for him, where he was just going like it didn't affect his play. Like he might not be experienced enough or good enough to actually do the things, but it didn't seem like he was overwhelmed by the moment.
I would agree with that, and he was serviceable. I mean, it's not like he was a train wreck. He did fine, and their offense is good. So the Bills got away with the win, and that's what they needed. I didn't need them to blow out the Dolphins. I just needed them to beat the Dolphins, and however you
Mission
do it,
accomplished. Yeah.
I mean, you played this team. That's the third time you've played this season. Like, it's not like. It's the NFL. This isn't college football. This isn't, Bama going up against Boise State. This is the NFL. Everybody can play here, and it's a playoff team. Giants.
Yeah, I feel like it was a seeding upset, and obviously it was an upset because I feel like the Vikings were favored by 3, but I don't know. I felt like the Vikings were overrated all year, even though they have some explosive talent, Jefferson and Cook specifically.
Yeah.
Smoke and mirrors all year with that team, though. I mean, I don't know. Nobody. There was never a time in the year where either one of us thought, okay, the Vikings are a contender, right? So, though an upset, I'm not anywhere shocked by this result.
We saw primetime Kirk Cousins every time, man. It's crazy how good he is if nobody's watching. But then as soon as he's got a national audience, that man just folds.
We should get a toilet bowl game with Andy Dalton, whatever team he's on, and Kirk Cousins, whatever team he's on next year, and let them play in prime time so one of them can get a win.
I'm on board. One of them's got to get it done.
Probably be a defensive touchdown show. Pick sixes galore, right?
Yes. Now the Giants are winning, and Brian Dabble is some type of sorcerer because he has managed to get Daniel Jones to stop fumbling and letting the ball get intercepted.
They lack skill position players, though. I mean, their receiving core is not good.
Atrocious.
I mean, when Darius Slayton is your favorite or your best guy.
They lead the NFL.
They got the Bills off cast. What's that kid Hodgkins' name? He actually catches balls now for the Giants. He got cut by the Bills.
Well, listen,
the Bills have way more receivers than the Giants had.
Obviously. The receiving core for the Giants, I believe it's by like a 2.5 times margin, leads the NFL in drop rate. Like it's remarkable how often they're dropping.
How
passes.
bad is that Kenny Galladay trade? That was terrible. Or was they a free agent signing? Either way, terrible.
It was a free agent signing, and they just threw him so much money.
And then they got rid of the best receiver they had was Tony, but he seemed like he didn't want to play there, so now he's with the Chiefs.
Yeah,
Tony. I can't remember how to pronounce his first name, but yeah, he went to the Chiefs as a free agent. So
no, it's the Giants are building.
I don't expect the Giants are a contender though. Do you?
No. Not legitimately. I don't. They're in the NFC, so anything can happen. The NFC is not nearly as top heavy as the AFC is.
And I think they go play the Eagles, so we'll get that right away.
Same thing, man. It's a division game. You never know. It could go either way. It's just I don't know. They don't. I don't know how you can get it done with that.
I mean, I tend to root for New York teams, so I root for the Bills and the Giants just because. But I don't know. I always want. Elite athletes to excel. So when Barkley had his knee issues, I always wonder if we were ever going to get that Barkley. And he's been good this year, but not great. Better than, seemingly a healthier running back. But I just don't know if I don't know if he can carry them. It's gonna depend on Danny Dimes there. So if he plays well and he rushes, a fair amount of time and that keeps him in drives, but I think this was the pinnacle of the Giants season was this weekend. Yeah.
I mean, next week they have a shot. I don't see them going beyond that. Right. I think they have a shot because it's a division opponent. And again, it's the same thing. All the same things we just talked about with the Bills Dolphins. You can never count these as a layup. Division games are different.
And I will say, do you think that there's any negative for the Eagles being off and the Giants playing in the week?
Yeah,
and then,
I think that's borne out in the
rust
past.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's borne out where you get out of your rhythm and it throws people off. But I don't know how much stock to put in it. It's just some teams respond well, some don't. I don't know what the Eagles will do.
Yeah, I don't know if they had any injuries that healed up over that time that gave them some benefit, but there's always that little bit of knocking the rust off in there. So
in the interim,
yeah. Any hot takes for tonight? Dallas Buccaneers.
I don't bet against Tom Brady. That's
so you're taking Tom Brady tonight.
Yeah,
I have Tom Brady in my fantasy lineup, along with Fournette and Mike Evans tonight, and Schultz, the tight end for the Cowboys. So that's what's left on my team. I had Gabe Davis. That was nice for me.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Gabe Davis is a different player in the playoffs than the regular season. He is disappears for large amounts of time.
So do you think that is a byproduct of teams focusing on Diggs?
Probably, but I don't know.
I mean, they're the Dolphins, right? So they know what they maybe pick their poison. I mean, Diggs had a good game too, so it wasn't like it was one or the other. But so is that your take that the Buccaneers going to upset the boys tonight? All right, I like that take. I'll root for the Buccaneers just because I don't know. It's fun to watch Dallas Cowboy fans misery, I guess.
I don't think I'm really cheering for either one.
Yeah, no, I'm not cheering. It's probably a over use of the word, but yeah, I don't know. The NFL playoffs are always fun. I still do think it's probably Bills or Chiefs and Eagles. That's the only three teams that I feel like. I mean, the Niners still keep looking good, but I mean, Brock Purdy is
at some point.
If you're comparing quarterbacks along the Hurts and the Mahomes and the Allen. Brock Purdy doesn't fit in that group, so
no, he's got to get past either. Any way you go, he's got to get past.
But again, he has Deebo Samuel and McCaffrey. You could throw him a 3-yard pass, and then me and you probably might be able to do that 1 out of 10 times and score a touchdown because those guys are just so good. So Brock Purdy gets carried along by his skill position players a lot. So you never know. I mean, listen, Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl, right?
So did Brad Johnson. I mean, there's been some outliers for sure. Nick Foles, Big Dick Nick.
Football's always good. I mean, the playoffs are always great.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. The Bengals are coming in with some injury concerns, though. They lost another O-lineman this weekend. They're like 2 injuries away from calling you. Seriously.
Now, they had a problem with sacks last year. I mean, their offensive line was not good last year, and they got to the Super Bowl, right?
So they still can. Joe Burrow is still a man.
And they have skill position players, too.
They have very good skill position players.
Yeah. Let me touch on one more sports thing before we move on to some juicy stuff. This is kind of a bridge to the juicy stuff. Tennis star caught in shocking fake vaccine scandal, Mr. Hussong. This is a quote from a doctor of Camila Giorgi. She looks very healthy and athletic in the picture here.
Almost like a professional athlete.
Exactly like a professional athlete. This is a quote from her doctor, I believe. "I can confirm with absolute certainty that none of the vaccines against the Giorgi family have actually been administered." So it seems somewhere along the way, Italian tennis star Camilla Giorgi had access to some kind of medical services that would give her and her family, quote unquote, proof of vaccination, allowing her to participate in last year's Australian Open, for example, which Djokovic could not participate in, so he should have been contacting this chick. I think everybody would have known that he had a fake vaccine. They'd be like,
yeah.
You?
Yeah, come on, man.
Come on. But anyway, so I love this. I hope she actually took one of my pictures that I shared online of the fake vaccination card, and somehow it matched the Italian vaccination card, and she just used my... I hope if I didn't directly, I hope indirectly facilitated the use of fake vaccine cards. So, because it was all bullshit. And I'm noticing this is written by Shawn Keeley. He's a former SU guy.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he runs Troy Nunes is a fab. What's his site? Troy Nunes is a absolute magician. That's his website. That's a quote from a long Syracuse broadcaster where Troy Nunes was scrambling around for like 35 minutes behind the line and then threw like some crazy 3-yard pass. And the announcer was like, "Troy Nunes is an absolute magician." But anyway, that's the name of his site. But I just realized that he wrote this article. So I don't know I'm not sure if there's going to be ramifications. She's playing in the Australian Open as we speak, so she has not been removed. But I find it interesting, and I'm just glad that somebody was able to put forth this or get around the system that was, unjustifiably keeping these players out of tennis matches. But good for her.
Yeah, I don't care. Like the idea that she needed to do that was always the dumbest thing to me. It was never ever a logical or well thought out policy. But the idea that now people are going to be outraged and we get to watch them clutch their pearls and everything else. All right, I guess we got to listen to this and listen to all you doomsdayers about how she put other people at risk. And I don't have it in me, so just go do it somewhere else.
Yeah, like I said, hopefully he wins the whole thing.
Yeah, me too. I'm a fan now.
Yeah.
I don't know who I've never been a big women's tennis guy or men's tennis for that matter. I don't think I've ever sat down and watched a tennis match. I
watched a lot of tennis matches in my day.
Are you being like facetious right now?
No, I told you back in my day when I was a smoothie king, I traded smoothies for tennis lessons. So during my heyday of massive forehands, I would turn on tennis to try to emulate those
whomever.
People. Yeah, whoever. I was also a big Steffi Graf fan back in the 90s.
I think every young man was a big Steffi Graf fan back in the 90s. Yeah. But how did your tennis game come along? Did you get some?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah?
I mean, for somebody who had never really played tennis.
Gotcha.
I will say that, I hope he's listening here, one of my very good friends who is an avid tennis player, takes lessons to this day. About a year, maybe probably a couple years after I stopped taking tennis lessons.
Yeah.
I went down and visited him in New Jersey to his tennis club and then beat him. So, and he's really good at tennis. I only won 5-4 because we only had an hour on the court. So technically I didn't win because you played a 6 in a set, but I was winning at the set at the end, and he basically called. He said, "Okay, well this will be it. This is if you win, you win," and I won that day. My serve was just going in. There's nothing you can do. It's just going in. So anyway. I do like me some tennis.
All right.
And tennis, female tennis, those are pretty athletic bodies. They get around pretty good.
Yeah, you people make it out like tennis is like a lazier sport. It's not at all. Like these people are running and not jogging. They are sprinting nonstop the entire time.
Yeah, unless you're at Wimbledon where they're just, acing everybody and they're just like turning around and doing the next thing. But yeah, I'm almost on these hard courts and especially on the clay courts, your conditioning is ridiculous, sir. Never played on clay court, thankfully.
Right.
There is one locally here down in like the north side. There's literally a clay court right in the middle of downtown Syracuse. Not downtown, but in the city anyway. So anyway, let's move on.
You are full of random information today.
Just about Syracuse and tennis, which is dumb. But what? Let's move on to a little bit of stuff that we like to cover here. The crypto world is a bit of buzz, I guess, because of the price movement in a lot of these specifically Bitcoin, but many of the altcoins as well have been jumping up here. And we got to 21,000 on the Bitcoin chart there. If you guys take a gander over Ben's head there, you can see that we are at 21,000.
There.
Yeah, there it is.
I got it.
21,037. I also have a bunch of this AMP. Remember this AMP thing I always share you? It just pumps and dumps all the time.
Yeah.
That thing's pumping today, so that's fun for me. But really that makes everybody wondered is the bottom in, right? Is the crypto bottom in specifically? Now, let's start all this discussion by acknowledging that we are by no means giving you any financial advice. So this is all infotainment, if you will. But since I dabble in the Bitcoin and we talk about the Bitcoin all the time, and the Bitcoin is doing pretty good. I like it. Went from like 16.5 to 21 and change over like a week. 20+% increase across the board here. I feel like it kind of coincided with the December CPI report. Like it started running up a little bit before that, but then kind of went up there. And obviously we got I guess a good CPI report. It was down a little bit, still up in general, but down from the last report. Bull trap, bottom. Any non-financial advice, thoughts on the Bitcoin thing? I feel like this might be a little bit of a bull trap. We have another CPI, just for record, we have another CPI coming out February 1st.
Okay.
And remember, the Fed wants high unemployment. They want markets crashing. They need to control their interest rates or their inflation,
right?
And those things are what they're trying to do. So I'm assuming this is not just up from here, up on the roller coaster, and we're hitting 69,000 here in the next couple months here. But it is encouraging that we did at least have this breakout, because it is, I think there was something I saw on CoinDesk, something like 916 million in short interest wiped out over this week. So that's fun. A lot of the short people were on the wrong side of the chart this week, but I don't know. I'm guessing we're going to get another pump or dump somewhere around the next CPI report, but I don't know. Any hot takes on the crypto market?
I think that it's impossible to know, because it's not, as much as the stock market in overall is untethered from reality, Bitcoin is untethered to anything. It is just a matter of true supply and demand. Who's buying it? Who's selling it? How much are they getting for it? And it's not, I can't look at the fundamentals underlying Bitcoin and be like, oh, the earnings per share are X, so we can anticipate a price of Y.
Let me throw this at you real quick. This must have been industrial or institutional buyers, right? 'Cause there's no way retail could have pumped this up that much in a week. So this had to have been massive amounts of money coming in, which, could be the pump and dump part.
If you believe the conspiracy theorists on Twitter, then this is all an orchestrated plan by BlackRock and Goldman Sachs to purchase enough Bitcoin specifically, but cryptocurrencies overall, that when the time comes that the Federal Reserve introduces its own crypto dollar, that they are then going to be in control of so much that they can offload it and thus kill the price of Bitcoin back down to below $1,000.
So you're saying there's an orchestrated pump, and they're eventually going to dump it on us.
High-level pump and dump.
It seems as though...
If you believe the conspiracy theorists on Twitter.
Sure. Which is, I give them more benefit of the doubt than most.
Sure.
As I do all conspiracy theorists.
I love
pretty much at this
conspiracy
point.
theorists.
Yeah. It seems like there's still a lot of moving parts in this, so I'm not all in. Let's reload the Bitcoin while it's here and let's start doing this thing again. But it is good to see. It hasn't, this is one thing you might, and the folks at home might be interested in. So the RSI, which is a relative strength index, which basically monitors buying and selling of certain assets in general. Sure. And you can find an RSI on pretty much any tradable asset. The RSI on Bitcoin, I think it was 2 days ago, hit the highest level since 2017. So that means all of the pumps between 2017, including 69,000, 50,000, all those other pumps, the buying strength was stronger this week than it was any of those times.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm in. Listen, I love Bitcoin. Let's go. I'll go back to 70,000. Let's do this. I'm in. I don't know if it's going to. It could go to zero. I have no idea.
I will say that maybe I mentioned this to you. I had a party where I was discussing Bitcoin with some smart math people, actuaries and such. Mm-hmm. And one of them told me that he had done some calculations, and I just trust his calculations because he's, math whiz guy, that when Bitcoin settles, when it finally settles down, it should settle in around $250,000 to $300,000 each.
Per Bitcoin?
Per Bitcoin.
Oh, boy.
He's like, that's not like next year or something, but he's like, when it all finally flushes out and settles down and everybody kind of adopts it, it should fall between $250,000 to $300,000. He said it could be as high as $500,000, but he was trying to lowball it and be safe at $250,000 to $300,000.
Math's fun.
I love it. He had some relationship to gold and the amount of money. I don't know. He was telling me some stuff, but it was way over my head. Or at least it was when I was working anyway. I wasn't going to try to get into it then, but I was very happy.
I will defer to him, and I'll believe him because, as you said, he is apparently a math whiz, and he's telling me exactly what I want to hear. So, yes, I am on board.
All right, let's shift gears, and maybe this has something to do with what we've been talking about here. But were you invited to Davos this week here, Mr. Hussong?
Obviously.
Did you lose that invite in the mail?
No, I just opted not to go. I'm too concerned about climate change to take my private jet to the Swiss. And it is unseasonably warm, so it wouldn't even be that fun.
You're noble. You're such a noble. So for those of you who don't know or don't pay attention to this nonsense, and I'm not going to get into too much thing, but I found this article here where here are the countries and companies dominating Davos. So if you guys don't know, the World Economic Forum has these annual meetings in Davos where they basically create a fake city and bring all these people in. And this article kind of shows some of the things that, or at least the attendees of this, so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on here. So, according to this article, which is Quartz, never heard of this, QZ.com. As of January 10th, 2,658 attendees are registered for the event. And so let me give you some of the breakdown here. International participants at Davos, U.S., 27% of attendees are United States. Just under 10% are Switzerland, just under 10% UK, 4% Germany, 3% India, Japan, United Arab Emirates, France, Netherlands, and South Africa are the only ones mentioned here, all in small single-digit percentages. So dominated by the American attendees, but clearly an international representation of all these people. Some of the wealthiest people in the world are here.
Sure.
The third richest person in the world, some Indian, Gautam Adani, who runs some India group, Adani Group, which is probably some hedge fund or some shit. So rich people are there. Politicians are there, Mr. Hussong.
Shocking.
Former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. Kiev Mayor Vitaly Klitschko, I found interesting.
Sure.
Remember him? Is he a boxer?
Vitaly Klitschko?
Yeah, him and his brother were both professional boxers. Yeah,
that's right.
They're Ukrainian.
Oh.
They hate the Russians.
Is he he's the mayor of Kyiv?
He's the mayor, it says, yeah.
Interesting.
U.S. climate change envoy John Kerry.
Oh, Christ.
Thankfully, he's there. This is kind of like a Bilderberg group, but like actually just out in the open, being like, hey, this is what we're doing here. And they kind of, cover it and sugarcoat it with a bunch of, hey, we're helping out the planet kind of stuff. But I thought some business leaders that were here were interesting to you. Stefan Bancel is here.
Oh, God.
Your boy, the Moderna CEO. There's 634 CEOs at Davos this year.
I think I know if the meteor is going to hit this week, I think I know I want it to land.
Yeah, if we could direct that. Could we get Harp on the phone and we just start directing meteors at Davos? Is that thing?
I feel like we can solve a lot of problems in the world. Not like wishing death on anybody, but we could probably right this ship pretty quickly.
And I don't know these names, but the Shell CEO, the Amazon CEO, the Citigroup CEO, the BlackRock CEO, these are all just an example of some of the people who are there. I'm sure there are many, many, many others there. So here's some companies who have and a number of attendees. CNBC, 13 attendees. They lead the league. Accenture, 9. Salesforce, 8. BlackRock, 7. Emirates, 7. Google, 7. McKinsey, 7. Stanford, 7. Unilever, 7. Wall Street Journal, 7. So, they got a good representation of the corporations that are dominating our way of life.
Yeah.
Represented there at the Davos.
If I ever got an invite, I would absolutely go. Because I would have to see just how pretentious and insane this place actually is. I couldn't pass up the opportunity. You could bust my balls about it all you wanted, but I can't not. I have to see this for myself.
And on top of these are some other media attendees. Top editors: Sally Busby from the Washington Post, Matthew Murray of the Wall Street Journal, David Walmsley of the Globe and Mail. It's kind of a who's who of the elite, globalists who are trying to, shape our way of life, Mr. Hussong. They're all doing it for us. We should be thankful.
Obviously. I consider myself a free market capitalist pretty much above all else. All right. I like the saying that democracy is just two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner.
Let me throw you some wild cards here that are here. You ready? I'm not sure who British actor Idris Elba is and his wife.
Yes, you are.
No.
You don't know Idris Elba?
No idea.
You'd know him if you saw him.
I didn't know it was a guy. So
yeah, it's do you watch Marvel movies?
Nope.
Okay, I'm trying to think what else.
I don't watch any movies.
I know, that's what I'm trying to.
That's why I don't know these people.
Figured I'd have a shot. He was in The Office briefly.
Okay, his wife was also there, who's a UN Goodwill ambassador. Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner.
Oh God,
he's there. Fun. Here's a weird one. Member of the Black Eyed Peas and CEO I Am. He's there.
Will I Am?
Also, yeah.
All right.
Also known as Will Adams.
Sure.
Probably first known as Will Adams, I guess, unless his mom was pretty creative. And then there's some Queen of the Netherlands.
Can't do anything
and
without
the Prince
her.
of Morocco.
Sure.
Let's just say that this is more than an eclectic group of individuals here, all meeting to try to better our lives, Mr. Hussong. You should feel thankful and encouraged by this meeting.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling all the way through, down to my bones. No, listen.
Did you know that our own Vladimir is it Vladimir? I don't know. Zelensky? Is that his first name?
No, it's not Vladimir. It's something like that, though.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Zelensky. President Zelensky. How about that?
President Zelensky.
He successfully joined the World Economic Forum yesterday. So,
what do you mean he joined them?
Apparently he had to sign up.
Oh.
I'm guessing he was invited.
Sure.
But there was an official joining of the World Economic... Ukraine has joined the World Economic Forum.
Oh, my God.
Shocker.
Yeah, that's my thing. I guess I'm pretty avid as a free market capitalist, but stuff like this makes me come to the realization that maybe some people do have too much money. Like the idea that this is the thing.
The thing is they have too much power, right?
Yes.
Right? So they have the money, but then they use the money to influence the people who actually make the laws and policies and rule our lives. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's not great.
All right. Any other Davos hot takes? I'm sure there'll be some enlightening information coming out of there. How about we can, start eating bugs and kill cows to eliminate cow farts to help climate change, because they seem to talk about climate change every one of these
things. These are the
things.
most unserious people that the world has ever seen.
Well, we'll get to them at the end. Don't worry.
But yeah,
whoever interviewed Ray Epps Adam Kinzinger is literally the most unserious person on the planet. But we'll get to there at the end.
I can't wait for that. Adam Kinzinger is I have no words.
Speaking of unserious, let's move on a little bit to this nonsense of the Biden documents. Now, let me just say that, first of all, I don't think the Trump classified documents or the Biden classified documents is a big deal at all. Like, I just don't. I maybe I'm completely wrong, and they're both trying to sell out nuclear secrets, but I just don't think that's the case. I'm guessing they probably covering some, if there's any nefarious actions that are going on with these classified documents being housed in their private residences, it's probably stuff that they're just embarrassed about more than any kind of, world dominant, nuclear secrets kind of. Listen, both these Trump and Biden are compromised people, so they could be leveraged for anything they want. I wouldn't be surprised by that, but call me naive, but I just don't think this is a big deal either way. Am I wrong on that, do you think?
No, I think that we get lazy and everything gets labeled as top secret because it's just it could be potentially embarrassing or it could lead to something. They always talk about how it's all sources and methods. We got to protect sources and methods.
Do you think the coverage of the two instances are comparable?
No, I think it's hilarious of how I still don't understand the people that cheerlead for either side here. I get the Trump people taking a dunk, taking a victory lap on the Biden people right now. Like, your guy has it. Hey, SWAT team, come on. These are the rules now. We need a special investigator.
There was a lot of garage memes that came through my feed. They were pretty good.
I literally just got one 5 minutes ago from a buddy of mine that has Hunter Biden sitting on a beach chair with no shirt on, smoking a cigarette. And it says, "So Dad is pissed. I was supposed to clean the garage."
I saw that one.
So
did you see the one where they had two garages? One was the Corvette, and then it said classified documents on the other door.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a bunch of them out there, but anyway,
I'm looking on Twitter, and people are literally like, "Oh, this has happened," and then the Biden supporters coming out like, did you even look at the dust? Those were clearly planted. Wait a minute. You think Trump planted top secret documents in Joe Biden's garage in Delaware? Like, how far gone is your brain that you can get to that point? I don't understand.
To me, I've said this before. I said this to some other people. Somebody asked me flat out what I thought about this, and I was like, if anything, if this is actually a thing, then this is just controlled demolition of Biden's term, right? Like they'd like, hey, we're going to build up enough case internally. We're going to be like, okay, enough stuff has happened. Our own guy should step down. Like we'll move on. I don't know, whatever. But I feel like this is all exactly what I said. A controlled demolition of Biden's last 2 years of his term. Not that I think they're going to try to replace him within that thing, because Kamala is probably just. I bet the people who are in power are just as scared as Kamala screwing it up as we are. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they want her to be anywhere near anything. No. Not that Biden's better, but they already have what they have there, so they have to. I think they're just going to figure out a way to run this out, use this to kind of undermine his ability to run for re-election, and they're just going to move on to.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom or I almost said Mario, but Andrew Cuomo.
No, Andrew Cuomo fell out of favor because he's still throwing shots. He's trying to get his own political career back into. I bet he's going to run for governor again.
I think he runs for president. I really do.
I mean,
he at least in my this is in my humble opinion, at least creates an exploratory committee for president. He at least is going to test the waters.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like he's eyeballing that for sure.
I think the problem is Joe Biden, look, he shouldn't have had these to begin with. The fact that he can't declassify anything, but he had access to them, and just where they're stored. Like there's one pile in this office that you never use, and then there's another one in your garage. Like, number one, here's what I do think is messed up. They actually found this back in November, but sat on the story until after the election, which is just garbage. Like that, it's just
par for the course.
It's just so dirty. There's no good reason for it. There's no justification. It's the Hunter laptop thing again. Like, you got to stop doing this because this is horrific. All you're showing is that you are 100% in the pocket of this party. Why? How does he get found out right now? I honestly don't know. I don't know why they're finding all these all of a sudden.
A week after the House takes control by the Republicans. And literally the timing is exactly what you said. They found it, and they knew exactly when they were going to release it so that they could. To me, it just gives it. It's almost like the Democrats are like, here, we're going to give the Republicans a little bit of something to chew on here to kind of distract them from a bunch of other stuff, and we'll let them kind of destroy Biden that way. But to my original point was, I don't think this is anywhere near like the worst thing that Joe Biden has ever done as president. Not even it's not even on the first 10 pages of the list. So no, I don't think anything happens like from this other than what the people in power want to happen. Like they're going to use it the way they want to use it, and I think it's a way to just remove Biden from running in 2024.
Who are they going to run?
I think you're right with Newsom is I mean, I think Newsom and Cuomo are two of the handful of top candidates. I mean, you can't imagine like Stacey Abrams or Beto O'Rourke are running again, right? They're done, right? We popped them their political careers, and they're moved on to being lesser, activists.
If I'm understanding you correctly, it's just the only hope for the Democrat Party comes from cis white males. I mean, super progressive.
Yeah. What else have they got?
They really don't even have that, if we're being honest. They could go with Mayor Pete. He's doing a bang-up job.
No. No, he's not. I don't know. Like I said, maybe I'll be proven wrong here, but I don't think I think this is much to do about nothing, I guess, is really where I'm at.
I couldn't care less, honestly. I just think it's funny after everybody
that's what it is to me.
Went nuts about Donald Trump having these things in Mar-a-Lago locked away. And I didn't care then either. So please, I'm being consistent. I don't care. What does the guy have? Like, probably nothing. And it's just sitting there. It's not like he's trying to sell it to some other country. And now Biden gets caught with it, and all the same people that want, like, oh, well, Trump interfered and he did this. And Biden is just complying immediately. Like, complying immediately? He left office 7 years ago. Like, he's had these for kind of a long time, guys. This is not an immediate turnover. And that's what doesn't make sense to me. Even back in November, how did they find these? Like, who's going through this stuff, discovering that it's top secret material, and being like, oh, we better report this?
The maid.
Shred it.
The help.
Move on with your day.
Yeah. No, listen, that kind of proves my point, though. It's like,
right.
They could have done something else, but they purposely created a scenario where it was going to be played out in the media. So let's move on to something dear to my heart, Mr. Hussong. Let me read this headline to you. It is utterly amazing that this actually came across my feed at one point. CNN analysts slammed after writing COVID deaths are being overcounted. 2.5 years late. Now, this goes to Leanna Wen, who you can see down here. She wrote a opinion piece in the Washington Post, I believe. Mm-hmm. I can't read the Washington Post because I'm not a subscriber and won't give them my email address to do so. So she is also a very well-known CNN analyst. Right. She goes on and gives us a bunch of stuff. Now, to her credit, I'm going to be as optimistic as I possibly can in this scenario. Sure. She also came out against the use of masks, basically saying these were not, they didn't work. They cloth masks.
Little correction.
Okay, go ahead.
She came out against cloth masks and said you needed KN95.
But who else has even done that?
Nobody.
Right. So I don't know what's going on here with Leanna Wen, but clearly she is at least willing to touch these third rails that we've been talking about for, again, 3 years. And this is the one that literally we knew about from the very beginning. I don't know about the very beginning, but it was not a secret, right? So there was multiple ways why we were counting, and she cites a couple different doctors and researchers in her piece that make the same claim. But let's touch on a couple things that we touched on multiple times here in this show. So two reasons, or multiple reasons, why they overcounted these things. First of all, the testing, right? So the PCR test basically gives a positive result even if you have an artifact of the virus left in your system months later, right? So, like, the test just could have been wrong, false positives, and we were marking them as COVID. That's just a basic level of the testing, already inflating the numbers that we have here. Second, in New York, for example, they were aggressively categorizing patients as COVID hospitalizations and COVID deaths. So in New York, if you tested positive for COVID and died within 60 days of that test, you were a COVID death.
Oh, yeah.
60 days.
Even if you died in a car accident.
Even if you died in a car accident.
Wound.
In some of these articles, they talk about people who have committed suicide who tested positive COVID, they're COVID deaths. Literally. So, two reasons why they're overcounting, right? So we have the hypersensitive PCR test that's basically giving a bunch of false positives of people who are no longer infectious or have cleared this virus months ago. And then we take those tests and we amplify them by giving everybody a COVID diagnosis, regardless of what they're actually in the hospital for.
Sure.
These were used. This is when when I would jump in on some of the county executives' posts, basically saying our cases are up, and I was like, these are not cases, and this is exactly what I was referencing in 2020. Like, these were not cases; these were positive tests, and maybe false positive tests at that, and maybe upwards of 90% false positive tests in some of these studies. So and we're not alone, elected officials and public health were using these inflated case numbers to two things: create fear in the populace to try to get people to act a certain way, and to push for a treatment that was coming down the pipe in this vaccine. So the overcounting of hospitalization deaths it's a major problem. And the fact that Leanna Wen is being slammed for this is a little ridiculous, but it's it was unbelievable when I read that she wrote that op-ed piece like literally 3 years too late, or at least 2.5 years too late. So I don't know. What are your initial takes on the piece, her claim, and what I was just kind of outlining there on top of all that?
She's right. But this has been obvious for 3 years. Like, we were talking about this 2.5 years ago. We were having an entire discussion on cycle thresholds of the PCR test and how this was not meant to be a yes/no, but it was similar to the seismic tools. What's the one on the gag measures earthquakes?
Geiger counter.
Geiger counter. Thank you. Like, it's not a yes/no question. There's always some. It's a matter of how much, and is it enough to matter? So using these as a yes/no was always flawed. And the idea of, I remember, I think it was an excerpt that I read of like a Florida medical examiner when they said, 24, 2 COVID deaths. And they're like, oh, was one of them symptomatic? And he was like, well, the one wasn't because he died in a motorcycle crash. Wait, why are we doing this? This makes no sense. And so, yeah, we overcounted grossly for a very long time. And, of course, every person who goes to the hospital, so let's just keep in mind, if you go to the hospital, you're already sick, all right? You got something going on.
You have something going on.
And then they give you a COVID test, and they have something that is going to generate a ton of false positives, tell them, oh, you also have COVID. Then you die of cancer. Oh, COVID. And this was the frustration on our end of it for a very long time of, why don't we want good information? Like, why don't we want to have the most accurate information from which we can make decisions? There was no excuse. There was no reason that we had to keep doing this. I get why you did it for the first week. Beyond that, it was completely unacceptable, and we knew better. But we just never stopped. And this is where smart people were doing very stupid things. And I'm going to stand by this. You can't get conveniently stupid. You can't tell me you didn't know this was happening. Of course you knew. You just didn't care.
Yeah, there's no way a hospital knows that there's a guy in the operating room with a broken leg is not in there for COVID, yet they were getting paid because they were COVID patients, right? So these hospitals were incentivized to mark everything COVID because they were getting reimbursed for COVID patients and extra bonus if they were on a ventilator, right? So like they were literally paying these hospitals to mistreat their patients, and the incentives were too good. These hospitals they shut off all elective surgeries, so they were making no money anywhere else. The only way they could make money was through these COVID patients. And so every hospital, and not trying to say they were right in doing so, but they were hamstrung by other, policies in place. And that basically said, okay, well, if we're going to stay in existence, we're going to mark all these people COVID. And this goes to the whole idea of, died of COVID or died with COVID, right? This was the distinction that nobody would make early on other than us that was happening. And let me cite one of these. This is Robin Dretler. He's an attending physician at Emory. He was one of the experts that Leanna Wen referenced. He's also the president of Georgia's chapter of infectious disease. So in his hospital, he estimated that 90% of the patients diagnosed with COVID were actually in the hospital for some other reason. 90%.
But they just counted them. COVID hospitalization. See how dangerous this disease is? Your rate of hospitalization from COVID is so high. Well, no, it's because you're taking every single person who goes to a hospital and testing them for a virus for which they're showing no symptoms. Like, that's why you start with a bad foundation and you just get bad data that people are drawing conclusions they cannot possibly draw. That's what's really so troubling about all of this, is that was why we needed a vaccine. Look, we said it early on of like, look, if you're young and you don't have any significant health factors, there's no reason for you to take a vaccine. That's crazy talk. Like, excuse me, but we did a study and it shows your risk of hospitalization is actually quite high. Like, no, it's not. You might end up at the hospital for something else because, you're young and dumb, but then they give you a COVID test and you test positive. That is skewing the numbers to an inaccurate conclusion. Why is this okay? Why has this ever been okay? It's not. I'm not a genius. I'm looking at this and going, well, here's a clear flaw in your plan, and then I'm being called a conspiracy theorist and told to shut up. But it's still a flaw. Like, well, why would they do it? I don't know why, but I'm telling you, this is just wrong. Like, there's no way you could get good data off of this. Like, oh, my God, you COVID-idiot, shut up. Like, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I was called a anti-science right-wing extremists for mentioning
science
this,
denying. I still love the Trumper thing because he was like the most pro-vaccine guy in the world.
I always mention this when that comes up. Like, he really wanted to name it the Trump vaccine.
Right.
I mean, like, the people who are trying to separate or trying to make it a MAGA thing is just, he got booed when he said he got his booster, right? So, like, I mean, and let me read one more quote from this article here. So this is author AJK. She, I think I follow her on Twitter. And this is just her. And this is her in response to Leanna Wen's op-ed piece. She's like, well, yeah, you'd think seeing this in legacy media would offer a feeling of vindication or resolution of those of us who have been screaming about it since 2020, i.e. me and you. But really, it's just exasperation, anger, and grief. The lies cause so much harm. Totally right. Like, if our county executive would have taken one bit of pause and listened to us for 30 seconds and be like, hey, why don't you go into the hospital, see which one of these people actually were admitted for COVID or admitted for some other reason, and then found out whether or not they had COVID. But there's zero chance he was ever going to do that because nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted that information. Nobody wanted to know that there was a problem going on. They wanted to amplify the problem, even though it didn't exist, so that they could
cash checks.
Yeah, they could cash checks and concentrate power. Yeah. So it's mind-boggling. I mean, it was mind-boggling to watch the mask thing come out of her, but the idea that she actually wrote exactly what we were saying 2.5 years ago and is getting vilified for it it just goes to show what kind of a bizarre planet we are living in. That the world is literally gone mad.
I think the people that are mad at her for writing this, if you're mad that she's acknowledging it and you're like, oh, well, she's joined the conspiracy theorists. Like, no, this is just, it shouldn't even be a controversial statement to make. It's such a common sense conclusion that it's unavoidable as you start looking at it. If you go anywhere below surface level, there is no other conclusion to draw. That's it. Like the same way they keep coming out with all these nonsensical studies and mathematical modeling about how the COVID vaccines have saved 3 million lives. No, they haven't. I'm sorry, guys, but there's just no way you could look at this data and their methodology and go, well, that's sound.
Yeah, they did the same thing that they did through all these things. They injected a variable that they could control and be like, yeah, the vaccines work. If the vaccines worked, this is how many people they saved. But guess what? Fucking vaccines didn't work.
Well, we start with the assumption that the vaccine reduces your likelihood of death by 90%, and then we assume this many people would have died because the fatality rate of COVID, we're going to assume, would have increased. And then now we got to go this way. Like, wait, you can't put that in and then draw a conclusion. That's insane. That's like me predicting that the Chicago Bears are going to win the Super Bowl next year because I look at their current victory rate and I double it and then assume the other teams they're playing are all going to be cut in half, and therefore it's incontrovertible that the Bears will win the Super Bowl next year.
I'm betting it.
I don't know why you wouldn't. It's science.
All right, let's follow up on a story that we tried to end with last week, but we didn't. We missed it by like about 30 minutes. The Fauci files. Alex Berenson, we'll just finish up our COVID discussion here after all that nonsense. But I would say anticlimactic, but not the Fauci files yet, because we haven't really got a long thread about Fauci's involvement.
Right.
We got some bits and pieces of some of these other things. But the first Twitter files report from Alex Berenson basically focused on Scott Gottlieb, another one of our county executives' favorite people on the planet, who used him as a reference and lifeline throughout this whole nonsense without acknowledging that he was actually a board member of Pfizer. Shocker. So this goes to show, this is, again, I have a link to Alex Berenson's tweet about this. It's a short one. I think it's only 4 posts. Yeah, it's only a 4-post thread. He does have a Substack that you can go and read, but I'll read some of them here. How Scott Gottlieb, a top Pfizer board member, used the same Twitter lobbyist as the White House to suppress debate on COVID vaccines, including from the fellow head of the U.S. FDA. Again, which Scott Gottlieb used to be the head of the FDA, and conveniently he is now a top board member on Pfizer. You know, brought to you by Pfizer, those people. In August 2021, Gottlieb told Todd O'Boyle, a senior manager in Twitter's public policy department, that a tweet from Dr. Grigori, who's the former FDA head, claiming correctly that natural immunity was superior to vaccine immunity, was corrosive and might go viral. So this is a tweet that Dr. Grigori, I don't know how to pronounce his name here, but made a tweet citing a study in Israel, I believe it was, saying that natural immunity was superior to vaccine immunity, and making this claim on Twitter was apparently going to be corrosive, according to Gottlieb, and might go viral, regardless of whatever that. So Twitter put a misleading tag on the tweet, preventing it from being shared. Gottlieb then went after a tweet about COVID's low risk to kids from Justin Hart. Pfizer would soon win the okay from its mRNA shots on kids, so keeping parents scared was crucial. So, again, Justin Hart, data analyst in California, I believe, was putting out stuff basically showing the lack of a risk for kids getting COVID and what would happen to them. But this was where Pfizer was trying to get their vaccine approved for kids, so they couldn't keep that, or they had to keep that from, again, going viral or becoming mainstream there. Let me finish out the thread here. In October of 22, Scott Gottlieb claimed on Twitter that CNBC, that he was not trying to suppress debate on mRNA jabs. These files proved that Gottlieb, board member of the company that made $70 billion on the shot, did just that. So you can kind of go through the Substack here of Alex Berenson, and he shows basically that's their emails back and forth between Scott Gottlieb and Todd O'Boyle, who is part of the Twitter team that was content moderating. So not a government interference or influence over this content moderation, but when Gottlieb was referenced as the reason, and this is in the internal emails if you read these, Gottlieb was never referenced as Pfizer board member. He was always referenced as former FDA chair or director, right? So not that they just didn't purposely out him as a Pfizer board member. They used his FDA credentials as weight over his current position as board member of Pfizer, even though Dr. Grior was also a FDA chair, making this, they gave weight to Gottlieb, the guy who was the top board member of Pfizer. So I'm expecting more to come out of this Fauci files, and I hope that it'll come out this week and we can cover it next week. But at least a glimpse at what was happening there beyond the scenes with some of the, at least with Scott Gottlieb and Twitter folks.
Yeah. I think it's hilarious now that all these TV networks and media companies are coming out and being like, oh, we did disclose that he's also a Pfizer board member. Like, eventually, yeah, but not initially you weren't. Don't lie. Let's not memory hole this. You literally would I didn't know he was a board member for Pfizer until like months into this. And I was following it along pretty closely, and I had no idea. I just knew he was a former FDA chairman.
Yeah, I remember sharing it. I can't remember who. Might have even been McKernan. Like there were people who knew. Yeah. There were definitely people who knew immediately that he was already on the Pfizer board, and I'm pretty sure we shared some of that stuff.
Oh, we did.
Craziness. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll get a more juicy Fauci files coming up here this week, and we'll cover that next week here for you. So now before we get into the final segment, the Ray Epps segment of the Sports Clicks and Politics, I'll remind everybody again home to please like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave us a 5-star rate and review wherever you are listening to us on the podcast service there. So it goes to help promote the show and help us get out to the masses and fight the algorithm overlords there in the social media world. So please help us out and promote the show here. But before we get into Ray Epps, I want to touch on something that might eventually involve Ray Epps, and that is the Committee on Government Weaponization. I'm not sure exactly what the committee is going to be called, but this is the parallel to what they're calling, the previous Church Commission. This is a committee that will be chaired by Jim Jordan, and my boy Thomas Massey is going to serve on this committee, which is just epic in my world. So if I had to pick one person to be on that committee, listen, I would love for him to chair the committee, but I'll take him being on it. He is said in an interview with Tucker, I think I referenced this last week, that if he was on such a committee, that if he said most of the stuff is going to be done in kind of like an intelligence room where it's a lot of classified information, so not all the stuff can be made public, but that, this is Thomas Massey speaking, that if he saw shenanigans or something sketchy going on within those meetings, he would come out and say, hey, there's something sketchy and shenanigans going on within these meetings. So hopefully that'll be true if it does happen, but the left is up in arms because they say this is going to, this is a threat to democracy again. So that they're going to, they're worried that this committee is going to undo the January 6th stuff. Like there was any January 6th stuff to do and begin with. We'll get into that in a second here, but
a whole lot of people found guilty for trespassing.
I mean, listen, do I think, am I encouraged when the Republicans pass a bill saying they were going to abolish the IRS and, the income tax? I love it, right? It has zero chance of moving forward. This is the kind of stuff that gives me good tingly feelings about stuff. So could this committee bring down what is to most of us looking an obvious partisan FBI? I feel like that's the main target of most of this committee, but that's going to branch off into a bunch of other things, and maybe we'll talk to Ray Epps. Maybe they'll bring in the January 6th and the Ray Epps stuff. Hopefully they'll bring in stuff about COVID. Hopefully they'll bring stuff about the FBI, Hunter Biden, anything that seemingly for the last 10, 12, maybe as far as I can basically been paying attention, over a decade of abuses by our government. Hopefully this can get to the bottom of some of those, and maybe cockroaches will scatter and we'll have at least a less disruptive government in our lives for the next couple years here anyway. I don't know. Are you encouraged by this weaponization committee?
Oh, yeah. I think any check on this power is good. I just think that these agencies have been given entirely too much deference, and they have run amok. I mean, there is every reason to believe that there's a problem. And the idea that you would not want to investigate them, that they are somehow beyond the pale, that they are somehow beyond oversight is dangerous. I mean, that's just a terrible idea, that if they don't fear some type of check on their power, then that's absolute power. The saying goes, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's a good thing to have the government oversight. Like we shouldn't let any agency, any branch of government have this much power, because it's inevitably filled with humans, and humans are flawed. How many instances are we seeing right now of, like, we'll get into Ray Epps in a minute, but even Governor Whitmer's kidnapping plot.
Fednapping.
Colloquially called the Fednapping plot, which is funny because it is like, you can't have 90% of the participants be on the payroll of the FBI and then expect me to take you seriously. It's just mind-blowing watching this all play out in real time. And the idea that it's the people that are on the left, historically not huge fans of the FBI and other power.
Yeah, the left was all about, speaking of MLK, right? It's Martin Luther King Day. The FBI encouraged him to kill himself.
Yep, they tried to. They tried to get him to kill himself. Like, they surveilled him. They followed him around. They tried to get him to off himself. They tried to blackmail him. Like, now they came out today and, like, we're going to honor his legacy. Like, maybe sit that one out.
Yeah. Let me touch base, and we'll move on to the Ray Epps stuff. So this is from this article that I'm reading here. The new panel will have the power to investigate the federal government, likely including ongoing investigations. Republicans have mentioned the U.S. Department of Justice as a potential area of focus. And here's a quote from Thomas Massey. It will allow us to investigate whether the FBI or any other three-letter agency in this government has been violating the constitutional civil rights of Americans. Hallelujah. So there's zero, it's a foregone conclusion that is happening. So this is hopefully going to shed some light on that, and maybe we'll get something out of this. Like, hard for me to hold out hope for anything noteworthy of that's actually going to change our government, because I'm basically blackpilled on this, and there's just I don't see any way out other than a collapse of this government. So I don't know. I guess I'll leave a sliver of hope that this actually does something here, but again, I'm not going to hold my breath, but encouraged nonetheless. Anything else on this weaponization committee here? I can tell you guys.
I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting that we're going to find out a ton of stuff. It's going to be a lot of this was classified, that was classified. But I hope that it's more than that. I hope that they do get to the bottom of it. And above all else, I hope they get these agencies to stop doing this stuff. That's what I'm really looking for. Just stop. Do your job. Not all this other nonsense where you're just exerting your power and flexing your muscle. Like, there's no reason for this. Stop.
Stop is right. All right. And I'm assuming that this is going to be part of this weaponization committee. The Ray Epps thing. This thing just will not go away. I can't they're trying to make it go away. I mean, so this is I'm reading an article from Raheem Kassam. He runs what's it? Damn it, I forgot the name of his. He's got a website that I forgot, but this is from his Substack, and I'll get you his website that he does too. It's National Pulse. That's what it is, National Pulse. I also saw him tweet. I don't know who this person was on Twitter, but somebody posted something. He apparently has hiring power. He's like, if you smoke marijuana, I would never hire you, right? And then I saw Raheem Kassam post underneath him. It's like, I smoke weed every day. I make all my hiring and firing decisions. I'll never have to work for you, kind of thing. So this guy gets credit for me on top of all that. So I got a new little nugget on Raheem here. So anyway, Ray Epps. We all know Ray Epps. Here, let's do a reminder of Ray Epps here, since I have this article pulled up here. Maybe you guys remember this.
Get back tomorrow. I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested. We need to go. I'll say it. We need to go in to the Capitol. Let's go! I'm not going to go to jail. Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol.
All right. So for those of you who had never seen that before, or were watching us the 17 other times I played it without audio, congratulations. I think I figured it out that time. But so this guy, Ray Epps, still walking free, not arrested, not indicted, nothing. He was interviewed on January 21st, 2022, Mr. Hussong. So this is months after the revolver breakdown of Ray Epps, where Darren Beatty basically broke down all the feds on site and kind of showed the people who were literally orchestrating this. And we'll get to that more definitive assertion from Mr. Epps near the end of this article here. But the interview is what this guy, let me see what he calls it here. I can't see it here, but basically Raheem Kassam's assertion is that the interview was a exculpatory PR move for the January 6th committee, right? So they basically knew they had to interview this guy because of all the reporting that had been done, and everybody knew who or what, Ray Epps was literally trending on Twitter. So everybody knew who this dude was, that he existed, saw the video that we just played, saw all the assertions that he was making there. And the interview itself is terrible. It's a clown show. And I encourage I shared the link in the description. So please read this, and because I'm not going to do it justice here in the next 10 minutes or whatever. So there are a couple things that are new to me that were unraveled or revealed in this interview here. So first, the assertion from Ray Epps was that he was only going there to offer protection for his son, who was also going to be there. So he was like, all right, well, I'm going to go there because I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm going to go there and make sure I protect my kid. Regardless if that's a thing or not, he wasn't just going there to help his kid. He literally had tourniquets, gauze, he had a bunch of stuff that he brought with him because he was going to a vacation to help. He basically called it a vacation. It was going to be a great vacation to get to see sights and show him what I had done with my father. Yet he brought tourniquets, gauze, bandages, a bunch of other stuff on top of all, whatever. So weird vacation planning.
Sure. I pack differently, but that's just me.
Me too. And I will say, and I'm not going to get into this deeply here, but during the questioning, they asked Ray Epps why he wanted to go into the Capitol. He says he was cold. So he wasn't prepared for the cold, but he had prepared for tourniquets and gauze bandages and a bunch of other stuff. So there's just that as nobody follows up on any of these assertions that he makes either. They ask him a question. He makes a bizarro comment, and then the interviewer's like, okay, and then just move on to the next thing. Like they just take his answer without any curiosity and understanding how this is nonsense. So
wow.
Another weird thing. Who is Paul Carver? Name I never heard of until this interview, right? Apparently Paul Carver was blowing up Ray Epps' phone all day, even though Ray Epps had no idea who this person was, and decided that he was a good thing to meet with this guy for lunch, somebody who never knew it, and they had a little discussion for a couple hours and went on with their way. But the assertion is that maybe he was a Fed and was helping coordinate Ray Epps in this thing. He says he doesn't know him, but then went to lunch with him and was there to protect his son, but was never with his son the whole time he was there. Like they were basically in different parts of the city the whole time, so he was not protecting shit. But that dinner was January 5th, Mr. Hussong, with this Paul Carver guy.
Interesting.
Just hours before his first claim of going into the Capitol on January 5th. So I don't know who Paul Carver is, but I find it more than interesting that he went to dinner with Ray Epps the night of January 5th with a guy who, apparently Ray Epps had no idea. So he was asked, does he work for the FBI, CIA, or NSA to your knowledge? And, I realized not that I'm aware of. So, okay. What else? I played you the video of going into the Capitol. We already did that. So I don't know. I encourage you to read this thing because, again, I don't want to read too much here because we're already running a little long here. But let's just say that the interview process was less than thorough. And, one other nugget. They asked Ray Epps if he heard the people chanting Fed, and he said no. Didn't hear it. The guys who were
come on
a foot away from him yelling in his face, a crowd of people did not hear the assertion that he was being labeled a Fed. So, some people in the crowd started chanting Fed towards you. Do you remember that? I don't. I even asked my son. I had a hard time believing it at first. I thought it might have been dubbed in or something. I didn't hear it. My son said he didn't hear it either. Nonsense. Dude is a fucking nut. The interview.
Who interviewed him?
Adam Kinzinger. They reference him. It's from the January 6th committee, so there's other people. But Adam Kinzinger was forefront of all the interview questions here. There's also some missing time in Ray Epps' timeline, about 2 hours, where he said he basically took him, he was 20 minutes away from, he could have been anywhere 12, 14, or 20 minutes away from whatever Washington Marriott he said he was staying at. But it took him 2 hours to get back to his hotel after things. So I'm not sure where he was doing in those 2 hours, but I'm guessing it wasn't having coffee. I'm guessing he was some kind of meeting of some sorts with some peoples. I don't want to guess, but yeah, this is also why I talked about him being cold. So he wanted to be in the front of the crowd. They asked him why he wanted to be front, and he said because he wanted to get into the Capitol because it was cold, and he wanted to make sure he got in there. But apparently forgot to bring his earmuffs.
He did not really say because it was cold.
Yeah, I think I can find it here. Yeah, here it is. Well, there's a few different reasons. One, we were freezing our butts off. It was cold out. We were going to get into the Capitol. I wanted to be inside. My son, since he referenced the same thing, we weren't dressed properly for it. That's an assertion by Mr. Ray Epps that he was at the front of the crowd trying to get into the Capitol because he was cold. Wasn't prepared for the cold. Forgot his earmuffs again.
So he started planning for this on January 5th? That it was going to be too cold and he needed to get inside?
The whole interview is bizarro, dude. I'm telling you, there is no literal questioning of this guy at all. It is a cover. It is just it is a way to have said we interviewed Ray Epps and we found nothing and nothing to see here and move on. That's all this was. And again, and we mentioned the orchestrated part. So this was part of the interview that everybody kind of latched onto and made the big deal about was he referenced, or his nephew, I believe, texted him, making sure he was all right. And he said, quote unquote, I was in the front with a few others. I also orchestrated it, quote unquote, from Ray Epps. So he's asked, I guess to the credit of the investigation, what do you mean by orchestrate? What did you orchestrate? I just meant, this is Ray Epps now answering, I just meant that you have to understand our relationship, uncle-nephew. So apparently his relationship with his nephew, he likes to brag. I don't know.
Apparently his relationship with his nephew is that of an uncle and a nephew. That is riveting stuff in his answers.
Yeah. We hunt together. We have fun with each other. We do kind of stuff. What I meant by orchestrate, I helped get people there, which I'm not really, that's exactly what orchestrating did. He literally got the people there. I'm not sure how that's a difference from orchestrating it, but the whole thing is bonkers. Like I said, this is not a real interview. There was no interest by this committee finding out who Ray Epps was, what he did, anything like that. This was a way to get credit for interviewing him and moving on with the investigation elsewhere. I encourage everybody to go read this article. It's mind-bogglingly dumb. And the fact that we are still sitting here with Ray Epps walking free and we have people being held without trial still, I feel like, is, again, a miscarriage of justice to the nth degree. So, I don't know. There's 96 pages of this interview. I don't know that I would go through all 96 pages of that. You might be dumber after listening to it, just from the questions being asked. But this is to me, a blatant effort to just remove Ray Epps from the discussion.
It's their way of saying, we did interview him and we found nothing. So shut up and go away. Like, well, yeah, if you don't look for anything, then you're probably not going to find anything. It's weird how that works out. So you're just checking the box to be able to say that we did interview him. See, our committee's real. It's legitimate. We're doing a great job for America. And anybody who tells you that we're just up here to whitewash the history of it is a crazy, unhinged conspiracy theorist who probably loves Vladimir Putin as much as they love Donald Trump. Because Adam Kinzinger is a fella, whatever the hell that means, and I'm still not sure. But this is a joke, and this is why we need better oversight. This is why Adam Kinzinger is no longer a member of Congress, because he did shit like this. And contrary to the belief of the people in power, the people out of power are not all stupid. Like, they seem to think that we are. They seem to think every one of us is just an idiot that they can say anything to, and we go, oh, okay. This is on par with Liz Cheney having her father do a political campaign talking about integrity. Like, the messaging was so laughable where you're going, you really just think we're all stupid. It's not anything else. You really just think we're this dumb and we'll listen to whatever you say.
You want to hear something dumb?
I do.
Let's listen to this question. So this is a question about, they have Epps' phone logs, so they're going through his text messages and whatnot. So, and this is a reference to one of the numbers that an outgoing and incoming text was. So this is the question. And then the last number there, we saw outgoing and incoming text was, and it's a redacted number. We have done our own research. Again, this is the questioner. We have done our own research on this, and there has been a public reporting that this sometimes shows up on people's phone records and is not a specific number for anyone. It just shows up on the phone records. I don't know what that means. This is literally a questioner giving an out to the interviewee, being like, well, we know this number just randomly shows up on things, so did it randomly just show up on your number, or do you actually know what this number is? And he's like, I don't know what it means. Like, obviously. It's a cover. It's a total cover-up. This thing is mind-bogglingly dumb. If you read it, you're dumber. But you're more informed. So, again, I'll tell everybody to go read this thing. I don't know.
Is this Revolver that has this again? Or
no,
what?
This is Raheem Kassam's Substack.
Okay.
So I did share a link to that in the subnote in the description notes. So just read it and know that your expectations in the government are going to dwindle even more if they are anywhere still existent. So I don't know what happens. I hope that the story we touched on previous, this weaponization committee, and I assume it will because Tom Massey's on it, and Massey has been all over this Ray Epps stuff. So I assume that this is going to be touched on, and I can't wait for it. Like, I literally want to – there were so many obvious follow-up questions, and to Raheem's credit, he points out some of these stupidness in this article, which is why I'm telling people to read it. I didn't want to take credit for his obvious questioning of the questions. I hope this dude goes to jail, and anybody who was part of this bullshit J6 interview, needs to be held accountable and basically a public flogging of some sort. So it's so dumb that it, even in my level of respect for government, is lesser after reading this. It's mind-bogglingly dumb. I don't know.
Right. Like, I don't know how you, as an American with any level of information available to you, don't realize you're being lied to about this.
Yeah.
Like, they have thousands of hours from various videos, from various security cameras, cell phone footage, and everything else of that day.
Yeah.
They're not releasing it.
Yeah. So, and they haven't yet. I will say that the part of the rules package negotiation was that they were going to release, or McCarthy agreed to release some of that video, if not all of it. So
good.
Maybe we'll get some answers here. We're not going to get any answers through this committee. This committee was a joke beyond a joke. I mean, we kind of knew that ahead of time just by the people who were on the committee, and the fact that they wouldn't allow certain other Republicans onto the committee kind of shows where they they already had a preconceived notion and where this was going to go. And this is said. I'm going to read this quote and then we'll wrap up here. So the entire thing reads like an exculpatory public relations effort. Repeat with assistance from committee members more concerned with helping Epps clear his name than getting to the bottom of his actions that day. But Epps' interview is even stranger than these CYA attempts.
Listen, this committee was formed with the goal in mind of establishing that January 6th was an insurrection attempt by an outgoing president, and that it was going to justify all of the people who had been arrested. That was what January 6th the committee set out to do. The January 6th committee did not set out to discover what really happened on that day or what went wrong. That was never part of the goal. The goal was never truth. The goal was never, hey, wherever this leads, it leads. And if it leads to the fact that this was an insurrection orchestrated and planned by a number of conspirators, then that's what we're going to establish. But if the truth reveals that it was not, and it was, in fact, a protest that got out of control, and that it did have federal informants as some of the orchestrators and agitators, and that's where we went. They were never going to, they wanted to not find that out. And that's what this interview actually is. This interview was an attempt to say, like, they weren't going to interview him until people kept pointing it out. Right. Thomas Massey going like, look, you're doing this, and you've got a guy on camera saying we're going into the Capitol, and you're not interviewing him? Seems to me that if you're trying to find the orchestrators and the organizers, you might want to start here. And finally, they interviewed him in January, right?
January 21st, 2022.
Yeah, 6 months after all this, they're going through and discovering.
I'm literally a year after the event.
And then finally, they're like, all right, well, look, we got to interview him, but just make sure we're not asking anything too hard, because we don't want anybody to know that he is absolutely working for some federal agency.
Yeah. So the Revolver exclusive on Ray Epps appeared October 25th, 2021.
I'm so happy Adam Kinzinger is no longer in Congress. Genuinely makes me happy that he couldn't even run because he was going to get shellacked so badly. I don't take much joy in watching people's career come to an end.
Unless they're lizard people?
I am happy he's his, and I am happy Liz Cheney's are done because they deserve it. They sold out any semblance of truth. And don't get me wrong, so does every other politician. But most politicians at least have the self-awareness to acknowledge that's what they're doing, so they don't make big, bold statements about it. These guys literally are they're turning on their own and then trying to act with any level of a moral authority. Like Chuck Schumer, I will at least give Chuck Schumer credit. He knows what he is and doesn't pretend to do anything differently. He doesn't pretend like he's anything better.
Yeah, he's the one to let it slip that the freaking intelligence agencies can get you
6 ways to Sunday to get back at you when you go to the intelligence agencies. Like Chuck Schumer is who he is.
Said the quiet part out loud.
All right, I got a fun one for you today. So over the weekend I was listening, and it's kind of related to all this. Scott Horton.
Yeah.
I was listening to him do an interview. I got to get this guy's name
banned
right.
and re-emerged on Twitter.
Yeah, he came back again, which is great.
Yeah.
But the Scott Horton show, if you're looking for a great interview show of some off-the-wall stuff, this dude's what the information this guy has bouncing around in his head is
mind-boggling.
It's wild how far down the rabbit hole he is. But he interviewed John Kiriakou. You know who John Kiriakou is?
I feel like I know that name.
Kiriakou or something like that. But he was a former CIA agent who then got arrested and sent to prison for naming the names of people who did torture individuals across the country. And so he's written a book and everything else. But at the end of the interview, this is his claim. So, I mean, look, if it's false, it's false. I apologize. He wanted a pardon. He wanted a pardon because, and he probably should get one because he's a whistleblower. So he said, he goes, I used the same lobbyist. I had a lobbyist going to Donald Trump to get a pardon. I lobbied, I paid, I was trying to get a pardon. Yes. And he said what the lobbyist told me. So this is all he said, she said. What the lobbyist told him was that Donald Trump was prepared, had the pardons written up for John Kirkow, Edward Snowden, and Julian Assange. And then Mitch McConnell came to him and said, if you pardon Assange, if you do these 3 pardons, you're going to lose the Senate and you're going to be found guilty on your impeachment. If you sign these, you will be found guilty on this second impeachment. And so Donald Trump didn't pardon him.
Yeah, I feel like that was even insinuated back in real time when that was happening, that there was leverage being applied to Trump to not do this because of that exact reason, that they were going to basically figure out a way to find him guilty. So I believe it all.
I love the people that point out, are like, look, Julian Assange literally just published information that was handed to him.
And listen, just following up on that, at least I think it's The Guardian and the New York Times and somebody in maybe Australia have come, and maybe there's a couple other ones, who have come out in defense of Julian Assange recently, within the last few months, because of the exact thing. They all printed the same material that he printed. They basically vetted it, all the similar things. Yet, if Julian Assange is going to be held as as a treasonous individual, then all of these media companies would be under the same problem. So
he's not even American. It's not treason.
I know. I know. So, yeah. I mean, listen, we'll get into that if as that extradition gets more underway.
Yeah, we'll definitely cover that in depth
for sure. But
that's horrible what they have done to him. And this is what I mean about Donald Trump being such a disappointment as the president, because it's always more about him than doing the right thing. It's always, always, always he comes first. Like, put yourself in that position. If I'm the outgoing president, I just lost this election, I'm just been impeached a second time, I got these things in front of me, and somebody comes in and says that, I'm giving him the middle finger and signing it in front of him and saying, do your worst. Here you go. Like, I don't want to play your game anymore. It's not worth it. And this is right, and this is right versus wrong. You know what? Screw you. I'm going out. I'm going full Bill Clinton. Let's bring up everybody who deserves a pardon. We're going all in on this. And that I'm referring to how Bill Clinton pardoned his brother Roger Clinton on one of his last days in office. Do you remember what Roger Clinton went to prison for?
I do not.
He was running the airport in Arkansas where they were running drugs definitely not a CIA drug running operation. Roger Clinton was just involved with normal narcotics trafficking. Not at all a CIA operation to run drugs through Central America.
We live in a crazy fucking time, dude. The fact that we get to talk about this is still a little bit mind-boggling. I'm glad we get to, because it's craziness. But
listen, we could talk about this all day. Just don't say like ivermectin, because then you get kicked off
3 times. All right. We covered a lot there today. We thank you all for sticking around and making it to the end here. Remind everybody to, again, help the show out. Leave us a review, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you all again next Monday. Mr. Hussong, would you like to leave anything with the folks for a week here before we reconvene next Monday?
Get together with friends and have brunch. It's a glorious way to spend a day in this dreary weather. You need human contact. Whether you like it or not, we're all meant to hang out with other people, and we get satisfaction out of it. Don't fight it. Go have brunch.
And let me remind the crowd here, the folks listening at home, the fans of the show, that we'll have a show next Monday for sure. And then I'm going to be in Florida for a month, so
we'll see.
We'll figure it out. We'll see if we can figure something out. Last year it didn't work out for me. I've been trying to play around with some things, try to make it work better. But if we can, we can. Maybe we can pre-record, and that might help. I don't know. We'll figure that.
You could do some deep dive stuff before you leave.
We might try to figure something out.
Maybe some interviews and just have that go.
Yeah, that's possible. There's a chance though that the schedule will be a little bit wonky in February, and then we'll be hopefully back in March
with our changes,
with some changes, with a little a format adjustment, and bring on some additional guests and some stuff there. So, on that note, I thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you all again next Monday. And what'd you say? What was the good? Oh, have brunch. Invite friends over for brunch. That's the advice of the wonderful Mr. Hussong. So thank you all again for have you all tuning in. We'll see you all again next week.